I'm going to tell this story as if it happened to me, just to simplify things. Like, I'll just say my name is Natalie, but obviously, it didn't happen to me. It happened to someone I know through a friend of a friend. But yeah, for the sake of storytelling, I'll just say it's me. So picture this, Natalie me, is traveling abroad. I'm not going to name the country because I don't want to offend anyone or make it seem like this could only happen there, because honestly, this could happen anywhere. But just know it's a country outside the US, somewhere I had never been, and I was there for a quick trip. Just a few days. Like a little getaway, you know. I was there with my sister, just living my best life, eating good food, sightseeing, having cute little outfits every day. You know the vibe, just being a tourist and loving it. Anyway, one night, we go out for drinks. We're at this bar, and it's actually pretty chill. The music is playing, people are dancing, it's not too crowded, just really good energy. That's when I meet him. We'll call him Sam. He was tall, dark, and honestly super charming. Like, the type of guy who knows exactly what to say. He had this accent that made everything he said sound poetic. I wasn't even trying to meet anyone on this trip, but he just had this vibe. He complimented my earrings, so random, but it made me laugh. We started talking, and next thing you know, we're at the bar for hours just chatting. So we exchange numbers, or whatever the local version of that is, and we start texting. He asks me out to dinner the next night. I'm like, okay, why not? I'm on vacation. I'm allowed to have a little fun. So I go. The dinner's nice. He takes me to this cute little restaurant tucked away in one of those cobblestone alley streets. Super aesthetic. Candlelight, wine, amazing food. But here's the thing, he kept ordering food. Like, so much food. At first, I thought maybe it was just like a cultural thing, hospitality or whatever. But I'm talking like 4 appetizers, a full main course, desserts, multiple rounds of wine. And he kept insisting I eat more. Like, you have to try this. Oh, you'll love this. You're too skinny, you need to eat more. And I'm like, okay, relax, but I didn't think too much of it. Anyway, we hang out for a couple more days, and it's more of the same. Every time we go out, it's a feast. And he's always watching me eat. Like, intensely. I started to get a little uncomfortable, but I also didn't want to be rude, and I figured maybe I was overthinking it. Then comes the last night. I'm flying back to the US the next morning, and Sam is really pushing for me to come back to his place. Like, he's been trying to make it happen the whole time, but this night he's extra about it. We're at dinner, of course, another huge meal, and he keeps asking me like, you're coming back to mine, right? It's your last night, you have to. You leave tomorrow, don't you want to spend the night together? And I'm like, but something in me was just like, no. Something felt off. He wouldn't let it go. He was pressing and pressing. So I excuse myself from the table and pretend to take a phone call. I call my sister and I'm like, hey, I need you to come get me. Just say it's an emergency or something. She plays along, and I go back to the table like, oh no, my sister needs me. Something came up. I gotta go. He looks disappointed, like visibly irritated, but he doesn't say much. I leave and go back to the hotel with my sister, and that's it. I'm like, phew, thank God that's over. But no, it's not over. The next morning, I get on my flight. I'm feeling fine, just tired. I get back to the US, get settled, and start getting back into my normal routine. A few days go by, and I notice this weird rash on my back. At first, I think it's just irritation from my clothes, or maybe a reaction to the hotel sheets or something. But it starts spreading. It's like red and patchy, and it starts to itch like crazy. So I make an appointment with my dermatologist. I tell her the whole story. Well, not the Sam part, but about traveling, the rash, that I just got back from overseas, and I'm not sure what's going on. She takes a sample and sends it off for testing. She's like, we'll call you when the results come in. A couple days later, I'm walking across campus, just a normal day. My phone rings. It's my dermatologist. But she's not like, hey, your results are ready. She's like, call me back right now. And I'm like, okay, chill. I call her back and she's like, I need you to come to the office immediately. The police are going to be here. I'm like, excuse me, what? She's like, just come. I can't explain over the phone. I'm freaking out. I call my sister and we both head to the office. I'm thinking maybe there's some weird infection. But when I get there, it's not just the police. It's the FBI. They take me into a room and start asking me questions like, have you met any new people in the last 6 months? Anyone overseas? Did you go into anyone's home? I'm like, yeah, I met this guy named Sam. We went out a few times while I was abroad, but I never went back to his place. They look at each other and one of them goes, that might have saved your life. Turns out, The cream that caused the rash wasn't a normal skin product. It was a topical substance used in preparation for cannibalism. Yeah, you heard me. Cannibalism. Apparently, there are certain chemicals used to tenderize meat, or in this case, human skin, and the cream has compounds only found in those. I'm stunned. I'm like, what the actual hell? The FBI tells me that this is part of an active investigation. They've been tracking this guy, Sam, for some time. When I gave them his name and description, they coordinated with local authorities in his country and raided his apartment. What they found was horrifying. They found multiple human remains, skulls, bones, even full limbs, hidden in his home. Some of the women had been reported missing months earlier. They believe he was targeting tourists, women traveling alone or with little protection. He would romance them, fatten them up, and then, well, you can guess the rest. They fully believe I was next. The reason he kept feeding me? To plump me up. The reason he wanted me to come to his place that night? That was going to be it. That was supposed to be my last night alive. I can't even explain how sick I felt hearing this. I live in New York City, the usual working, dating, the whole thing. One day, I'm on a dating app. I think it was Hinge or maybe Bumble. Doesn't matter. I matched with this guy, and from the very beginning, he seemed like a total catch. Like, not just attractive, but stable. He had a good job, lived in the city, seemed super respectful in his texts, and just had this overall energy that made me feel like, okay, this one might actually be normal. We talked for a few weeks, just casually messaging back and forth, nothing too intense. He wasn't love bombing or being weird or anything. No red flags. Like zero. That's the part that really gets me. There were no signs. So eventually he asks me out. We decide on this really cute restaurant near my neighborhood. I remember picking out an outfit and doing my makeup thinking, this might actually be a good one. So I show up, and he's already there waiting. He stands up, pulls out my chair, greets me with a smile. Gentleman vibes. The dinner goes well. He's polite, funny, asks me questions, listens. He's nice to the waitstaff, paid for the entire meal without making it weird. I left thinking, that was actually kind of perfect. We both head back to our separate apartments, and I start winding down. I'm in my comfies, makeup off, scrolling on my phone when I get a text from him. He tells me he lost his key and can't get into his apartment. Apparently, his roommate wasn't home and wasn't responding, and he didn't have a spare key hidden anywhere. I feel bad, obviously, because what would you do in that situation, right? So I'm like, okay, just come over for a bit. You can chill here until your roommate gets back or until you figure something out. I wasn't thinking anything of it. I mean, we just had a great date. He seemed totally safe. I even texted my friend like, he's coming over for a bit, but I think he's cool. Just in case. He comes over, and we're sitting on the couch. We talk for a while. It's chill. He's totally normal. No weird vibes. No creepy behavior. No trying to make a move or being inappropriate. Just two people hanging out after a date. Eventually, I start getting tired. I tell him, hey, I'm going to head to bed. You can stay on the couch for now. Hopefully your roommate answers soon. And here's the moment that changed everything. For no real reason, I go into my bedroom and lock the door. I don't usually do that, like ever. But something in me, something small, quiet, but firm, said, lock the door. So I did. I get into bed, kind of proud of myself for taking that little extra precaution. I scroll on my phone for a bit, and then start dozing off. Everything's quiet. Until about 3 a.m. I wake up to a soft knock on my bedroom door. It's him. His voice is low, calm. Hey, do you have a phone charger in there? Mine's dead, and I need to charge it. I'm still half asleep, like, yeah, there's one on the kitchen counter. Just grab it from there. I don't get up, don't unlock the door, just give him the info through the door. He says, thanks. I hear him walk away, and I roll over, trying to go back to sleep. But I can't. Something's bugging me. I don't know why, but that small voice, the one that told me to lock the door, is back. And this time it's louder. Maybe 5 minutes later, he knocks again. Hey, the charger's not working. Do you have one in your room? Now I'm wide awake. My heart starts racing. I sit up in bed, not saying anything for a second. Then I reply, no, I don't. It's just that one. He goes quiet. I grab my phone and immediately text 911. I explain that I have a man in my apartment who's acting strange, and I feel unsafe. I give them my address. They say officers are on the way. It feels like forever, but maybe 10 minutes later, I hear banging at my front door, police. I hear footsteps, voices, some kind of struggle. Then it goes quiet. Another knock on my bedroom door. This time it's a police officer. "Ma'am, we've cleared the apartment. He's in custody. We need you to come out." I open the door slowly, heart pounding, and step out. What I see next changes everything. My entire living room is covered in plastic. Like full-on plastic sheets, on the floor, on the couch, even on the coffee table. And on the floor next to the couch, a set of power tools. I almost throw up. The officer leads me outside, and I'm in total shock. I keep thinking, what would have happened if I hadn't locked the door? If I had gotten up to give him the charger? If I had let him in for just 1 second? They later tell me he had no intention of waiting for his roommate. The charger excuse was a ruse to get me to open the bedroom door. And the plastic? He had brought it with him. The tools? Also his. And that great date we had? Most likely just a calculated act to gain my trust. I don't even remember getting back into my apartment after that. I stayed with a friend for a few days. Changed the locks. Got a security system. I couldn't sleep without a light on for weeks. The thing that keeps haunting me, though, is how normal he seemed. Like, there was no warning. No creepy text. No weird behavior. Nothing. He was just average. Normal. Nice even. But that's the thing. Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who look like villains in movies. Sometimes they're the ones who blend in perfectly. The ones who smile, ask about your day, pull out your chair at dinner. So I met this guy on Hinge, which, yeah, maybe that was the first error. Thorn was cute in his pictures, muscular, great smile, seemed outgoing. We messaged for a little while, and he was charming enough. He made me laugh. He seemed to have a decent job. So when he asked me out to get ramen, I said yes. I mean, who says no to noodles? Now here's where things already started to go sideways. I let him pick me up at my house. I never do that. I don't know what was in the air that day. Maybe I was feeling wild. Maybe I was just tired of taking Ubers. But I was like, yeah, sure. You can pick me up. The second I stepped into his car, this beat-up old Jeep, I knew it was a mistake. You guys, it smelled like farts. And not just oops, someone tooted 5 minutes ago kind of farts. Like this Jeep had decades of flatulence baked into every fiber of the seats. I'm talking deep, marinated, seasoned stink. I got in and immediately regretted all my life choices. I'm trying to be polite though, right? So I'm like, hey, can we maybe roll down the window? And Thorn, with all the confidence in the world, goes, oh, I can blast the AC if you're hot. Sir, I don't need cold stink. I need fresh air. So we roll down the windows, and I'm holding my breath like I'm in a sewer. We finally get to the ramen place, and I'm just praying the restaurant smells like anything other than that Jeep. Luckily it does. We sit down, we order, and I'm trying to reset my mood. Like, okay, maybe it'll get better. Maybe the Jeep was a fluke. But no. Thorn starts talking, and talking, and talking. And guess what the subject is? His ex. I kid you not, this man mentions his ex-girlfriend every 5 minutes. At first, it was small things. Like, oh yeah, my ex likes spicy ramen too. Okay, weird flex, but fine. But then it's like, yeah, my ex always used to say the same thing. You actually remind me of her a little bit. And then it goes, we were together for like 6 years, but I just knew she wasn't the one. And I'm sitting there like, then why are you still talking about her like she's your therapist? It was nonstop. I'm trying to bring up literally any other topic, music, travel, favorite pets, bread types. I would have talked about Grout if it meant a break from the X Chronicles. But Thorn kept circling back. Now somewhere in the middle of this X fest, I mentioned my ex. Not in a deep, emotional way, just like offhand, in response to something he said. And suddenly, Thorn gets all stiff and quiet. Like he's offended. Like, oh, I can't talk about my ex, but you've been monologuing about yours like you're auditioning for a sad boy documentary? Anyway, the date continues. We finish eating, and he drives me back home. I'm honestly just relieved it's over. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, just smile, thank him, go inside, and block him later. But then he leans in, and I freeze. I didn't want to kiss him. I didn't even want to high-five him. But I was scared. Genuinely. He knew where I lived. And something about his vibe just shifted. I didn't feel safe to reject him. So I gave him a quick, awkward kiss. The kind you give your great aunt on the cheek when you're 5, and she smells like cough drops. And then I bolted. The next day, I don't text him. Obviously. I'm hoping he gets the hint. But no. Thorn comes in hot. He starts messaging me saying things like, Wow, I guess you were just another girl using me for a free meal. And I'm like, sir, I ate half a bowl of ramen and listened to your entire relationship history. If anything, you owe me therapy. I tried to be polite. I said, hey, I'm sorry if this didn't go the way you hoped. I just didn't feel a connection. And you know what he says? He tells me I should pay him back for the meal. At this point, I'm kind of scared. Again, he knows where I live. I don't want to set him off. So I'm like, fine. I'll send you half. I Venmo'd him like $15 or something, just to make it go away. And then I blocked him. I wish I could say that's where the story ends, but nope. A couple of days later, I get a message from a random account on Instagram. It's Thorn. He made a burner just to tell me that girls like me are manipulative and trash, and that karma will get me. Like, okay, Gandalf, go cast your spells somewhere else. The whole thing was just gross. It wasn't just the Jeep funk or the ex obsession or the petty Venmo request. It was the way he made me feel like I owed him something. Like I was supposed to reward him for being a mediocre dinner companion with a kiss, a second date, and my undivided loyalty. So yeah, that was my date with Thorn. Lesson learned, never let someone pick you up for a first date, always trust your gut, and if their car smells like a haunted beanbag, just get out. Okay, buckle up because this one is a bit of a roller coaster. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding like I was the villain and the victim all at once. Like looking back on it, I definitely could have handled things better, but at the same time, some people just don't know when to stop. So yeah, this is the story of the most unnecessarily dramatic situationship I've ever been in, and how it all spiraled from zero to full-blown emotional chaos in literally 10 days. Let's call him Zevin. And let's call me. I don't know Leora. It just feels right. So Zevin and I met on the track team in college. He was one of those guys who flirted with every girl, like, he wasn't even subtle about it. If you were wearing mascara and breathing, he'd be like, you look amazing today. So at first, I wasn't into it. I mean, everyone knew his vibe. He was funny, sure, and not bad to look at, but I wasn't interested in being another name in the rotation, you know? But then we started texting. It started off casual, playing stupid iMessage games like 8-Ball and Cup Pong, sending dumb memes. Nothing serious. I was bored and he was entertaining. At some point, he started acting like we were more than we were, and it kind of freaked me out. So I ghosted him. Just like, stop replying. No explanation. I know, not my proudest moment, but I wasn't ready to deal with it, and I figured if we weren't dating, I didn't owe him anything. And that probably should have been the end of it. But of course it wasn't. Months go by. I'm living my life, doing my thing. Then one day, I randomly start texting Zevin again. I was feeling nostalgic, or maybe just lonely, and I remembered that he was actually really easy to talk to. I figured, okay, maybe we can just be friends. I even told him that, like, very clearly. I said, hey, I don't want anything romantic. I just miss talking to you. And for a while it was fine. But then he started bringing up the fact that I ghosted him the first time. A lot. Like every time we talked, he'd throw in a little dig like, oh, are you going to disappear again? Or let's see how long this lasts. And I was like, okay, I get it. I messed up. But if you're going to keep bringing it up, why are we even talking? So I ghosted him again. I know. It sounds bad, but it wasn't just because of the comments. It was also that he started getting super intense really fast. Like, we weren't even dating, and he was acting like I broke his heart. I told him from the beginning that we were keeping it casual, and he was already out here acting like I was his wife who ran off with the neighbor. It was too much. Anyway, time passes again. I'm doing my thing, minding my business, and then it's his birthday. And for some reason, I think I was feeling soft. I decided to text him. Just a simple happy birthday. Nothing fancy. But apparently, that was enough to open the floodgates. He immediately responds like, wow, I didn't think I'd hear from you again. And then he starts telling me how happy he is to hear from me, how he's missed me, how he's always wanted to talk again. And I don't know, something about it got to me. Everyone around us, our mutual friends, people on the track team, had always said that Zevin really liked me, that he never stopped talking about me, even when we weren't speaking. So I gave in. Again, we start talking regularly. And this time I'm like, okay, let's actually go on a real date. I owed him that much, right? So we go out, and honestly, it was great. Like, suspiciously great. He was mature, calm, didn't bring up the past, didn't act bitter. It felt like maybe he had grown up a little bit. I let my guard down. The next few days were just as good. We were texting constantly, seeing each other almost every day. And I started thinking, maybe this could actually work. Like maybe after all the weird starts and stops, we were finally in a good place. But oh no, that would have been too easy. Somewhere around day 4 or 5, Zevin starts getting weird. Not in a creepy way, but in an obsessive, suffocating way. He starts talking about being my boyfriend. Like not just hinting, straight up saying things like, when we're official, and I want us to be together for real this time. And I'm sitting there like, we've been talking for 5 days. You don't even know how I take my coffee. It was intense. Every text felt like a mini proposal. Every hangout came with some new plan for our hypothetical future. And it wasn't romantic. It was overwhelming. I felt like he was trying to fast forward into a relationship before I even decided if I liked him like that again. To make matters worse, he kept bringing up the past. Again. Like, remember when you ghosted me the first time? Or, you better not disappear again. And I was like, bro, if you're still mad, why are we doing this? I was getting frustrated, and he was getting clingy, and the whole thing just started to feel heavy. So I made a decision. On what would be our 3rd official date, I was going to break things off. I didn't want to ghost him again. I wanted to be honest and just say, hey, I've thought about it, and I don't think this is going to work. That day, we decided to go bowling. And I was like, okay, we'll just have a chill night, and then I'll talk to him when we go get food afterward. But of course, even bowling wasn't safe. He brought up the ghosting thing again. Like, wow, it's our 10-day talking anniversary. Think you can make it to 11? I tried to laugh it off, but I was already checked out. After bowling, we went to lunch, and that's when he goes, there's something serious I want to talk to you about. And I was like, oh boy, here it is. So I go, you first. I figured I'd let him say whatever he needed to say before I dropped the bomb. And he goes, what are we? I swear, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the timing was just so bad. Like we were literally sitting in a booth at a random diner, eating soggy fries, and this man was pulling out the define the relationship card. After 10 days. So I take a deep breath and I'm like, listen, I've been thinking a lot, and I just don't think this is going to work. I don't see us being together, and I don't want to keep leading you on. He starts crying. Not a single tear. Not a little sniffle. Full-on tears. He's wiping his face, his voice is shaking, and I'm just sitting there like, what is happening? It felt like I had just told him I was moving to another planet and taking his dog with me. He was devastated. And I get it. Rejection sucks. But 10 days? We weren't even officially dating. We were just talking. But to him, it was like we had already built a life together, and I was tearing it down brick by brick. I tried to be kind. I told him he was a good person, that I just didn't feel ready for something serious, that I needed space. But he wasn't hearing it. He kept saying, I don't understand. I thought this was real. I thought we had something special. And to make things even more awkward, he still paid for my food. I told him not to. I even reached for my card. But he insisted. And I could tell he wasn't doing it because he was being nice. He was doing it like, maybe if I pay for this, she'll change her mind. Like he was trying to buy one more day of hope. Then came the worst part, the drive home. We sat in silence the entire way. 20 minutes of nothing but the sound of the road and the occasional sniffle. I felt horrible, but also weirdly relieved. Like I knew I had done the right thing, but it still sucked. When we got to my place, I turned to him and said, I'm sorry. He didn't say anything, just nodded. I got out of the car, and that should have been the end. But nope. For the next week, he texted me nonstop. Long paragraphs. Apologies. Desperate pleas. Please just give me one more chance. I know I messed up, but I can change. I'll never bring up the ghosting again, I promise. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What more could I say that I hadn't already said? Eventually, I had to block him. And I hate doing that. I really do. But he wouldn't stop. It felt like harassment. And if I'm being honest, it started to scare me. Like, how could someone get that attached in 10 days? It didn't feel healthy. It didn't feel safe. So yeah, that's the story of Zevin. The guy who cried after 10 days of talking, tried to guilt me into a relationship, and just couldn't let it go. I don't blame him for having feelings. I don't even blame him for being hurt. I just wish he had respected my space and my decisions. We'll call me Paloma. And the guy in this story? Let's name him Yarek. It sounds mysterious, right? Fitting. So I met Yarek on Bumble. He was hot, like model-level hot. Tall, dark hair, incredible jawline, abs for days. I mean, his photos were next level. The kind of profile you screenshot and send to your group chat like, Tell me this isn't a catfish, right? But he had a verified check, so I figured, okay, he's real. We started chatting and honestly, it was good. He wasn't just attractive, he was articulate, funny, and actually asked me questions. We talked about movies, music, weird travel experiences. Nothing felt rushed or creepy. Just really solid banter. After a few days, he asked if we could move to WhatsApp. Normally, I'd be like, red flag. But people do that all the time internationally, and he claimed to have just moved to London from Germany for work. I figured, okay, maybe it's easier for him. Plus, he sent voice notes. He had this really deep, calm voice. Like, the kind you could fall asleep to. It didn't sound fake or robotic, and that helped me feel like he was legit. So eventually, Yarek suggests we go out. He tells me he has a bar in mind, and says he'll send me the postcode. Cool, right? Except, the postcode he sends? It's a random residential street. Like, not a bar. Not even near a bar. Just a row of flats. So I text him like, hey, can you send me the name of the bar? And he goes, just meet me at the postcode. We can walk there together. I respond like, would it be okay if I just meet you directly at the bar? I'll feel more comfortable. And he doubles down. No, just meet me here. It's easier. Red flag. Massive red flag. Now I should mention, I was supposed to be in the office that day, which would have made the location slightly more convenient. But plans changed, and I ended up working from home. So when I mapped the location from my flat, it was over an hour away by tube. And it's a Tuesday. I'm not about to trek across London for a guy I've never met, especially not late at night. So I message him like, that's a bit far for me. Is there anywhere we can meet halfway? He gets weird about it. Says, it's really not that far. You can just take a quick tube and walk across the bridge. I'm like, it's not one stop. It's an hour. He starts insisting it's only £15 for an Uber and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. This is where the tension starts to build. I'm trying to be polite, but I also don't want to be guilted into something I'm uncomfortable with. I tell him, look, maybe we can just reschedule for another day and find a place that's more in the middle. He responds super fast like, well, too late now. I already put my credit card down for the reservation. They'll charge me if I cancel. Now, this didn't sit right with me. I know most bars in London don't require a card to book a table, especially on a weekday. So I go to the bar's website, click reserve a table. And guess what? You don't have to pay anything. No card details. Nothing. I'm getting more and more uneasy. Something just feels off. So I do what any true crime podcast listener would do. I reverse image search his photos. I use this site called facecheck.id. It basically scans the internet for social media profiles that match the same face. And that's when my stomach drops. His face pops up. Not under the name Yarek. Not even someone in London. The real guy in the photos is a fitness model based in Germany. Whole other name, whole other life. I check the Instagram account, and every photo on Jarek's Bumble profile is taken directly from this model's page. Same lighting, same outfits, same captions. It was a full-on identity theft situation. I sat there frozen, staring at my screen. I couldn't breathe for a second. My brain was going 100 miles an hour. Who had I been talking to? Who was sending me voice notes? Who was trying to get me to meet at a random residential street? I go back to our WhatsApp chat and reread everything. Suddenly, it all feels different. The way he insisted on meeting at that vague location. The way he got defensive when I asked to meet halfway. The lie about the reservation. The pushiness masked as convenience. It wasn't just sketchy. It was calculated. I immediately screenshot everything, the Bumble profile, the WhatsApp messages, the face check results, and I send them to a friend. She calls me right away, panicking. She's like, you cannot go. Block him. Report him. This is serious. So I do. I report him on Bumble. I go to block him on WhatsApp, but before I do, I send one last message. I send him the screenshot of the real fitness model's Instagram. No caption. Just the image. He never responded. I blocked him before he could. But the fear didn't go away. I kept thinking, what would have happened if I had gone? What if I hadn't asked for the name of the bar? What if I believed the whole credit card reservation lie? Would I have gotten there and realized too late that I was alone on a quiet street with a stranger who wasn't who he said he was? I still don't know what his plan was. Maybe he wanted to rob me. Maybe worse. But everything about it felt engineered. Like he'd done this before. He had a system. And maybe, just maybe, I was the first one to catch on before it was too late. After that, I didn't go on any dates for a while. I changed my Bumble settings, turned off location tracking, and made sure all my socials were locked down. I even got one of those personal safety alarms, just in case. The scariest part? He was so normal. That fake profile? It was polished. Verified. The pictures were high quality. The messages were charming. The voice notes were warm. There were no typos, no weird phrases. He didn't come off creepy. He came off real. And that's what makes these people dangerous. It's not the ones who look shady from the start. It's the ones who blend in. The ones who know exactly how to act, exactly what to say. So yeah, that's how I almost walked into a trap. I don't know what his true intention was, and maybe I never will. But I'm damn glad I trusted my gut. Because even if it made me feel paranoid or too cautious, I'd rather be safe and single than end up as a headline. So to anyone out there swiping, chatting, flirting, be careful. Google people. Reverse image search. Ask questions. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And never, ever let someone make you feel guilty for wanting to protect yourself. Better safe. Always. You ever go on a date that starts off pretty normal, like everything seems chill, and then halfway through, you're just sitting there thinking, am I in a hidden camera show? Is someone about to jump out and tell me this was a prank? Yeah, that was this date. Okay, so I'm going to tell this story just like I lived it, because I still haven't recovered. This all happened a couple months ago, and I've been debating whether to share it because I didn't want to seem petty. But now that enough time has passed, I feel like it's my duty to warn others. So let's call this girl Esme. And me, I'll just stick with my name, Covey, because honestly, I came out of this date with emotional damage and a much lighter wallet. So, Esme and I had been talking for maybe a week or two. It was light, flirty, standard dating app banter. Nothing crazy. She seemed cool. A little quirky, but I like that. I've always had a thing for people who aren't boring. I'm not saying I wanted full chaos, but like a little spice. Keeps things interesting. So we're texting, and one day she goes, I love frozen yogurt. Like, I could eat it every day. And I was like, say less. Let's do a Yoji date. Yoji is this self-serve froyo place near us, and it's kind of a local spot for casual dates. Like low commitment, chill vibe. You go, fill up your cup, sprinkle on some toppings, sit and chat. Perfect for a first hangout. She's like, yes, that sounds amazing. So we set a date. Fast forward to the night of. I go to pick her up, and right away things feel good. No awkward tension. She hops in the car, gives me a big smile, and we're already chatting like old friends. I'm like, sweet, this is going well. Chemistry? Check. We get to Yoji, and we head inside. I go straight for the small cup because, portion control. I'm not trying to spend $20 on dairy and candy. I grab my little cup, and I look over at Esme. She grabs the biggest cup they have. Like the family size one. The kind that looks like a mixing bowl. I blinked. Twice. I'm thinking, okay, maybe she just likes holding a big cup for comfort. Maybe she's not actually going to fill the whole thing. Innocent until proven guilty, right? Wrong. We start moving down the froyo machines, and I'm there being all careful, like doing the little swirl, just a few ounces. Like, let's be reasonable, let's not trigger the scale. I'm rationing my flavors like I'm budgeting for rent. Meanwhile, Esme is over there just launching yogurt into the bowl. Like full throttle. No hesitation. She's doing triple swirls at each machine. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, mango, cookies, and cream. You name it, it's in there. She's out here creating the Mount Everest of froyo. I'm watching her like, what are you doing? But I keep it inside because I don't want to be that guy. The one who's like, hey, maybe don't bankrupt me on our first date. Then we get to the toppings bar. I'm thinking, okay, maybe she'll chill out now. No, absolutely not. She grabs the biggest spoon and starts scooping toppings like she's building a sundae for an army. M&Ms, sprinkles, crushed Oreos, cookie dough strawberries, those little jelly popping things. What are they called? Wabba balls? Popping pearls? Whatever, she dumped like half the container into her cup. I'm still there doing precision sprinkles. Like literally shaking a few chocolate chips onto mine like I'm seasoning a steak. I'm putting on one strawberry slice at a time. I'm trying to make my cup look like a reasonable snack, not a structural engineering project. We get to the register, and the cashier gives us the classic line. Are you two together? I glance at Esme. She looks at me, and I'm like, yeah, we're together. Mistake. Huge mistake. They put both cups on the scale, hers nearly breaks it. I swear I saw the register shake. The total comes up, and I'm physically sweating. It's like $32. For yogurt. I'm not even exaggerating. Mine was like $5. Hers was ungodly. I swipe my card, trying not to cry. We sit down, and I try to reset. I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's just money. Maybe she's just really hungry. Maybe she hasn't eaten all day. We sit there, and I start eating mine. I take a bite, and it's good. I'm enjoying myself. I glance at Esme, and she's already halfway through her mountain of yogurt. Like devouring it. I've never seen someone eat frozen yogurt with that much intensity. She's locked in. Focused. Like she's in a competitive eating contest. I try to make conversation, but she's clearly in the zone. So I just eat mine in silence, watching her like, okay then. I chalk it up to nerves. Maybe she's shy. Whatever. Then, out of nowhere, she points at my cup and goes, "That looks really good." I laugh, kind of jokingly, like, "Yeah, it's alright. But you've got like 5 pounds of toppings in yours." She goes, "No, but yours looks really good." I'm like, "Haha, yeah, you can try some if you want." She goes, "Sweet." And then she straight up reaches over and starts eating my yogurt. No hesitation. Just grabs my cup and takes a big spoonful. I'm stunned. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Sharing yogurt now. That's intimate. She goes, and that's delicious. And then as she keeps eating, like, not just the taste, she's full on helping herself. I'm just sitting there like, ma'am, that is my froyo. I try to laugh it off, but now I'm getting the ick. Like, I'm not even a germaphobe, but we just met. This isn't a we've been dating for 3 months kind of situation. This is date 1. And you just stole my dessert. Then she makes it weirder. She leans in and goes, in this weird sing-songy voice, "That's yummy, I." Like loud. People are turning their heads. I'm dying inside. I don't know what's happening anymore. I finish what's left of my yogurt, what she hasn't eaten, and I'm like, alright, cool, this was fun. I walk her to the car, and we sit for a second. She's still talking like nothing happened. I'm nodding along, already planning my exit. I drop her off, and she goes, "We should do this again sometime." I fake smile and say, "Yeah, totally." I never texted her again. And she never texted me either, which honestly was a blessing. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt the vibe shift. Or maybe she was too busy rating other people's yogurt. So Roan and I met on Hinge. That app is like a digital casino. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's a gem, sometimes it's someone who thinks sapiosexual is a personality. But Roan seemed okay. He was persistent, I'll give him that. We'd matched once before, and I had ended up ghosting him. I know, it's not the best move, but I was 18 and had the attention span of a squirrel. I'd agree to plans, then flake last minute. Not because I was trying to be rude, just because I had no idea how to manage my social anxiety back then. Anyway, Roan had tried to talk to me multiple times over the course of a year. He'd DM me on Instagram, respond to random stories, even comment on my posts sometimes. I never replied. And then one day I was scrolling through his profile because I'm nosy, and I thought, you know what? He's kinda cute. Maybe I should give this guy a real chance. So I did. I messaged him. We reconnected. He was thrilled. Like, you'd think I cured his seasonal depression or something. He immediately started planning a date. He was like, "Let me pick you up." And for some reason, probably temporary brain fog, I said yes. I let this man pick me up from my house. First time meeting in person. I know. I was being a dumb idiot that day. The car ride to the restaurant? Honestly, great. We vibed. We were laughing, talking about music, school life. I was like, dang, maybe this is actually going to be a good night. That was my first mistake, assuming peace. We pull into the restaurant parking lot. It's a casual place, nothing too fancy. As we're getting out of the car, Roan gets a FaceTime call. He goes, "Oh, it's my boy, I'm just gonna answer real quick." I'm thinking, okay, whatever. That's normal. He answers the call, and immediately, I recognize the voice on the other end. My stomach drops. It's Covey, a guy I used to talk to. Not just talk to like talk. We had a thing for a few months, and then he ghosted me. Poof. Gone. No warning, no explanation. So now, I'm sitting there frozen, watching Roan on FaceTime with Covey, and trying not to melt into the pavement. Covey's like, "Yo, what are you up to?" And Roan, with all the enthusiasm in the world, goes, "I'm actually on a date right now." Then he turns the camera toward me and says, "Her name's Keelani." You might know her. Covey's face shifts. He definitely knows me. He starts laughing. Not like, haha, small world, but like, yo, this is hilarious, I can't wait to roast this later kind of laugh. And I'm sitting there like, why is my life a sitcom no one asked for? And then, because this night had to reach maximum humiliation, a third voice joins the call. A guy named Jules. Another guy I had talked to. Briefly but still. Apparently, all three of them were hanging out. And all three of them had some sort of history with me. At this point, I'm just standing there like I've been hit with a taser. Roan, oblivious, is still laughing. Then one of them goes, yo, say hi to her. And Roan turns the phone to me again, like I'm a zoo exhibit. I give a weak wave. Hi. Covey's still laughing. Jules is smirking. I'm dying inside. Roan hangs up and doesn't say anything. Not, that was weird, or small world, or even sorry about that. Just straight up walks into the restaurant like nothing happened. I follow him in, trying to process what just occurred. We sit down, order food, and I'm trying to get it together. Surprisingly, the actual dinner part goes okay. We talk, we laugh, we eat. But I'm still stuck in my head, thinking about that call. How did he know both of them? Why didn't he say anything? At some point, Roan excuses himself to go to the bathroom. He's gone for like 10 minutes. When he comes back, he's different. Like, different. His eyes are a little red. His energy is off. He's giggling at random things. And that's when it hits me, he's high. This man went to the bathroom and got high mid-date. Now listen, I don't care if people smoke. Do your thing. But don't lie about it. Roan had told me over the phone that he didn't smoke at all. Said he hated it, that it made him paranoid, that he avoided it entirely. And now he's sitting across from me, clearly stoned, grinning like a cartoon. I'm trying to keep the conversation going, but he's zoned out. And then, as if this night hadn't already been a Greek tragedy, he decides that is the moment to bring up the FaceTime call. He leans in and goes, so, are you just trying to hook up with the whole friend group? I blink. Excuse me? He goes, I mean you talked to Covey. And Jules. And now me. Are you just making your way through the roster? I'm stunned. Like, genuinely speechless. I sit there, blinking at him, trying to decide if I should flip the table or just walk out. I finally go, first of all, I didn't even know you all knew each other. Second, I talked to Covey like 5 months ago. And Jules? We messaged for a week and never met up. And now you're acting like I planned this. He shrugs. I don't know. Just seems like a pattern. A pattern? Sir, what? Is this CSI, dating app edition? I try to stay calm, but I'm fuming. I say, listen, you're making a lot of assumptions based on nothing. And honestly, it's really rude. He leans back, arms crossed, and goes, whatever. I just don't want to be another guy you ghost. I'm like, you're about to be. The energy is ruined. I just want to go home. But here's the kicker, he drove me there. So I'm stuck. I can't exactly call an Uber from a suburban parking lot with 2% battery and no charger. We finish dinner in painful silence. He pays, because at this point, even he knows he messed up. But the damage is done. We walk to the car, and I'm praying the ride home is quick. It's not. He drives slow. Like aggressively slow. No music. No talking. Just us and the hum of the tires. Finally, we pull up to my place. I reach for the door handle, and he goes, you sure you don't want to come over? I laugh. I actually laugh. Out loud. Absolutely not. He rolls his eyes. Whatever. I get out of the car, close the door, and walk into my building without looking back. A few minutes later, I get a text. Sorry if I made things weird. I just really liked you, and didn't expect all that history to pop up. I don't answer. Then another text. I still think we had a connection. Blocked. I don't have the energy to explain to another man that talking to two guys briefly over the course of a year does not make me a homie hopper. That I don't owe him a second date just because he finally got one after a year of trying. That being on a group FaceTime with my ex-flings doesn't give him license to slut-shame me on a first date. I've had bad dates before. Uncomfortable conversations, awkward hugs, guys who lied about their height. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for the night a man left me stranded on the side of a highway. Yes, a literal highway. On-ramp. Cars speeding past me. No shoes. No phone signal. Just me, my dignity, barely, and the growing realization that I needed to make better life choices. Let me explain. I met Jake on Hinge. He was tall, handsome in a vaguely chaotic way, and had a profile that made me laugh. His answers were clever, borderline unhinged, but in a way that suggested he might be fun in small doses. We matched, messaged for a week or so, and then made plans to meet up for drinks. The first date was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. He was funny, talked a lot, and had this intense energy like he'd just come from a CrossFit class and a conspiracy theory Reddit thread simultaneously. But he was charming enough, and when he asked to see me again, I said yes. Mistake number 1. For our second date, he suggested driving out to this dive bar about 45 minutes away. He said, "It's a hidden gem. Live music, cheap drinks, real locals-only energy." I was hesitant. I'm a city girl. I like places where the bathroom has more than a curtain and the drinks don't come in plastic cups. But he was enthusiastic, and I thought, okay, give it a shot. Worst case, it's a story. Spoiler, it was. He picked me up around 8 p.m. in his truck. Not a cute vintage truck. Not a clean suburban dad truck. A beat-up, mud-streaked, possibly haunted truck that smelled like beef jerky and regret. I got in, and immediately my gut started whispering. This was a bad idea. Mistake number 2, I ignored it. The drive started fine. He was blasting old punk music and talking about how much he hated his job. He worked in sales, but had dreams of becoming a full-time content creator. When I asked what kind of content, he said, mostly rants. Political stuff. Some fitness. I used to do knife reviews. I nodded slowly. About 20 minutes in, I realized we were not taking the highway. We were snaking through back roads, winding past dark woods and long stretches of nothing. I asked, "Is this the fastest route?" He said, "Nah, but it's more scenic." That might have been romantic if not for the fact that it was pitch black, and the only thing scenic was the glowing eyes of roadside animals. We finally get to the bar. It's half empty, smells like spilled beer and desperation, and the band playing sounds like they're still learning their instruments. But, again, I'm trying to be cool. Go with the flow. Live a little. Jake orders us drinks, whiskey shots, and PBRs. I nurse mine slowly. He downs his like it's water. Then another. And another. He starts talking faster. Getting louder. Telling me about his ex. How she didn't get him. How she tried to control him. How he doesn't do drama. Then he says, "You're different. I can tell. You're chill." I smile awkwardly and say, "Thanks." Then he says, "Do you want to get out of here?" I think he means leave the bar. I say, "Yeah, I'm kind of tired." He grins. "I know a spot." Mistake number 3, I let him drive again. We get back in the truck, and he starts heading toward the highway. We're on the ramp when he suddenly asks, "Do you believe in soulmates?" I say, "That's a big question." He says, "I do. I think people either click or they don't. And I clicked with you." My stomach drops. Then he says, "But I also think people who don't value freedom are dangerous." I say, "Totally." He says, "Like if we're not aligned spiritually, I need to know now." I say, "Okay." Then he pulls over. On the highway. Not an exit. Not a rest stop. The shoulder of the on-ramp. Cars are flying by, honking. I look at him, confused. He says, "You don't get it." I can tell. "You're stuck in the matrix." I blink. "What?" He points at me. "You're not ready. I thought you were. But you're not." I try to stay calm. "Jake, what are you doing?" He stares ahead, hands gripping the wheel. Then he says, "I think you should get out." I laugh nervously. "You're kidding." He shakes his head. I need to protect my energy. At this point, I realize he's dead serious. I say, "You're going to leave me here?" On the side of the highway. He says, "You'll figure it out. You're smart." I reach for my phone. No signal. I look down. I'm wearing platform sandals. No jacket. No bag. Just my phone, which is now at 12%. I say, "Please don't do this." He doesn't answer. Just unlocks the doors. I open the door slowly, stepping out like I'm in a fever dream. He pulls away. No dramatic exit. Just merges back into traffic and disappears. I stand there. Alone. Cars zooming past me. My hair whipping in the wind. No streetlights. No sidewalks. Just gravel and a rising sense of panic. I start walking. I don't know where I'm going, just away. After about 10 minutes, I see a gas station in the distance. I head toward it like it's a lighthouse in a storm. I walk in. The cashier looks up and says, "Rough night?" I nod. "You have no idea." I charge my phone, call a friend, and wait 40 minutes for her to pick me up. During that time, I sit on a bench next to a vending machine and reflect on my life choices. Jake texted me the next morning. "Hope you made it home okay. I needed to do what was right for me." I looked and did not respond. How could it? You ever have one of those moments where you look back on something and think, "Oh my God, I could have died," not in a dramatic, over-the-top way, but in a real, deeply unsettling, I ignored so many warning signs and somehow lived to tell the tale kind of way? Yeah, that was me. Sophomore year of college. Fully convinced I was grown, mature, and emotionally intelligent. Spoiler alert, I was none of those things. I was 21, bored, and lonely in the middle of finals week. All my friends were either buried in textbooks or melting down over exams. I, on the other hand, decided to entertain a guy I met at a bar the weekend before. Let's call him Talon. Because honestly, that's the kind of name he deserves. We'd met at this dive bar near campus. I remember thinking he seemed different. Not charming exactly, but intense in a way I mistook for intriguing. He had this nice car, some kind of fancy sports model, and this weirdly serious energy. No jokes, no sarcasm, just straight-up questions like, "What are your long-term goals?" while we were standing next to a pinball machine. I should have known right then, but I didn't. I gave him my number. We went on one date, nothing dramatic. He picked me up in the sports car, which he clearly didn't know how to drive. That should have been red flag number one. Like, if you're going to flex a car that costs more than college tuition, at least know where the door handle is. Anyway, the second date was where things went sideways. It was a Wednesday night. Dead week. Everyone was either studying or stress eating in their dorms. Talon texts me around 10 p.m. asking how my night's going. I tell him I've been stuck studying for hours and that I could use a break. He responds immediately, "Want to go for a walk?" And I'm like, sure. Walks are harmless, right? He suggests Gasworks Park. For those of you not from Seattle, it's this industrial park turned scenic overlook. It's got water views and a giant grassy hill, but at night, it's pitch black on one side and eerily quiet. It's the kind of place that would be totally romantic in a rom-com and absolutely terrifying in a true crime documentary. Still, I agree. He tells me he needs to get gas first, and that he'll be there in 30 minutes. I tell my roommates I'm heading out and to track my location. I make a joke like, if I don't come back, he's a serial killer. We laugh. Haha. Funny. Except not. An hour and a half passes. No text. No call. I'm standing by my building in leggings and a hoodie, rethinking my entire life. Then he finally texts, "Here." I walk out, expecting to see the same sleek sports car from our first date. Instead, there's a beat-up 4Runner idling at the curb. I hesitate. He rolls down the window and waves. "Hey, come in," he says. I climb in, trying not to show how weirded out I am. The car smells like gym socks and wet dog. There's fur on the seats. Empty water bottles on the floor. He notices my expression and goes, "Yeah, I let my dogs ride in this one. Don't want them messing up my other car." "Oh, okay. Sure." We start driving, and I try to shake the weird vibe. I make small talk. He mostly just nods. We pull into the Gasworks parking lot, and he says, "Ready?" I'm like, "Yeah." I reach for the door. He stops me. "Wait. Don't laugh." I freeze. "What?" He gets out of the car and stands in front of me, wearing 2 different shoes. I kid you not. 2 completely different shoes. 1 sneaker, 1 boot. I stare. He shrugs. "I was just really excited to see you. Didn't notice." "Okay. That's sweet. I guess. But also, who does that?" We start walking across the park. It's dark. Really dark. The kind of dark where your phone flashlight barely helps. I try to lead us toward the lit areas, but he keeps steering us to the back side of the hill. The quiet side. The side with no people. I try to play it cool. My friends are tracking my location. I say it loud and clear, like I'm announcing it for any hidden microphones. He chuckles. "How accurate is that?" I pause. "It's super accurate. Like down to the foot." He nods. "Cool." We're walking in silence now. I'm hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound. Then he stops and says, "If this was a Dexter episode, this would be the perfect spot." I force a laugh. "Haha. Yeah. Creepy." He keeps walking. I'm just saying. It's secluded. Quiet. No one would know. I think I aged 10 years in that moment. We finally circle back to the front of the hill. There are people spinning fire, like actual fire dancers. I'm relieved to see other humans. I suggest we sit by the water, thinking it'll be safer with people in sight. We head down to the rocks. The area is semi-secluded, but at least there are lights nearby. He asks if we can sit on the edge. I agree, but I position myself closest to the railing in case I need to bolt. We sit. I try to relax. He makes another joke about dumping a body here. I'm not even pretending to laugh anymore. I quietly text my roommate, "Can you come get me?" She's like, "On my way." I'm stalling, trying to keep the conversation going, but also watching his hands. At one point, I see him fiddling with something in his pocket. My stomach flips. I jump up. "Okay, yeah, I think I'm ready to go home." He's surprised. "Already?" "Yeah, I've got a final tomorrow. I should really study." He sighs but agrees. We walk back to the car, and I'm trying to find a way to tell him I'm not getting back in. But my purse is still on the passenger seat. He unlocks the doors. I open mine, grab my bag, and then freeze. The gas gauge? Empty. Like empty. This man told me he was late because he had to get gas. And the tank is bone dry. Every instinct in my body is screaming. I back away and scan the lot. There's a couple sitting in a car nearby. I walk over and knock on their window. "Hey, I'm so sorry, but I don't feel safe. Can I wait here until my friend comes?" They immediately unlock the door. I get in. Talon is watching me from his car, expression unreadable. Then he peels out of the lot, speeding off like a fast and furious extra. I sit there shaking, barely able to form words. The couple is kind. They wait with me until my roommate arrives. I never hear from Talon again. I block his number, delete his contact, and for weeks afterward, I sleep with a chair wedged under my doorknob. I don't know what he was planning. I don't want to know. But I do know this: I'll never ignore my gut again. I was 22, freshly out of a situationship, and back on the apps, against my better judgment. I figured I'd just dip a toe in, see what was out there. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone who could carry a conversation and maybe make me laugh. Enter Riven. He had this soft boy with edge thing going for him. Artsy Instagram posts, thoughtful captions, the kind of guy who wore rings and had a favorite poet. His profile said he was into photography, long walks, and books that ruin you. I rolled my eyes, but I swiped right anyway. We matched. He messaged me first. "You have the energy of someone who annotates their books and cries in public." I should have known then. We started talking. And honestly, it was good. He was funny, warm, just the right amount of flirty. We had similar music taste. We both loved bookstores. He mentioned this one place downtown, an indie shop that had a cafe inside and shelves that reached the ceiling. "It's where I go when the world's too loud," he said. I melted a little. So when he asked me out, I said yes. Brunch and a bookstore crawl. I thought, okay, this is cute. This is wholesome. I even told my roommate, I think this one might be normal. Mistake number 1. The morning of, I get dressed in my casual but effortful outfit. A comfy sweater, jeans, boots. It's fall, so I'm feeling cozy and optimistic. Riven picks me up. He's wearing an oversized coat and carrying a small bouquet of flowers. I blink. Are these for me? He smiles. They were for someone else, but I figured they shouldn't go to waste. I laugh, thinking it's a joke. That's dark. He doesn't laugh. I brush it off, tell myself he's just being poetic. Maybe it's a bit. Maybe I'm overthinking. He drives us to brunch. It's one of those rustic, artisanal places with jam jars on the table and 6 kinds of sourdough. We sit outside under a heater. The food is good. The conversation is off. At first, it's normal. We talk about favorite books, growing up, weird childhood snacks. But then he starts telling me this oddly detailed story about his ex. Not in a bitter way, more like a slow, nostalgic unraveling. She cheated on me, he says, sipping his coffee, with someone who worked at her job. I found out because he posted a poem about her. I say, wow, that's awful. I'm sorry. He shrugs. It's fine. That was a year ago. A year ago? Today, actually, he adds. I pause. Wait, today's your breakup anniversary? He nods, smiles faintly. Felt poetic to go on a date today. I laugh awkwardly. That's bold. He grins. You're helping me close a chapter. The server brings the check. He pays. I offer to split, and he waves me off. You're already doing enough, he says, which I think is weird, but I let it go. We get back in the car. I assume we're heading to the bookstore he mentioned. But instead, he pulls into a parking garage next to a small shopping plaza. I'm confused. This isn't the bookstore, is it? He smiles. No, this is her bookstore. My stomach drops. What? He unbuckles his seatbelt. My ex. This is where she works. Well, used to. I think she still does weekends. She's a pastry chef now across the street. I stare at him. You're joking. He shakes his head. Nope. Come on. You'll love it. Great selection. I don't move. You brought me here, to the place your ex works? He tilts his head. Technically, she works across the street. But she used to work here. Might still hang out. Who knows? I blink. Why? He shrugs. Closure. I don't know what to do. I'm already here. So I follow him inside, heart pounding. The bookstore is cute, quaint, quiet, smells like cedar and old pages. But I can't focus. I'm too busy scanning for her. I don't even know what she looks like, but I feel her in the walls. Riven walks through the aisles like he owns the place. Picks up a copy of On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous and hands it to me. She cried when she read this, he says. Said it reminded her of us. I hold the book like it's radioactive. Cool. He leads me to the poetry section. Pulls out a thin volume. This is the one he wrote about her. The guy she cheated with. He self-published. I stare at him. You're not over her. He looks at me dead serious. Does anyone ever really get over someone who ruins them? I take a step back. I think we should go. He nods like he expected that. Okay. One more stop. I should have said no. I should have walked out. But I was frozen, partly from shock, partly from morbid curiosity. We crossed the street. A small cafe. Glass windows. Inside, a counter lined with pastries. A young woman behind the counter, laughing with a co-worker. Riven pauses outside. There she is. I stare at him. You're insane. He smiles. You're beautiful. She'll see you and wonder how I moved on. I whisper, you haven't moved on. He says nothing. We go inside. I'm too stunned to stop him. We order coffee and a slice of cake. She sees us. I know she knows. Her smile falters. Her eyes linger on me. She brings the dessert to our table. Sets it down gently. Her hands are shaking. Riven says, thank you, like it's the most loaded sentence in the world. She nods. Walks away. I eat one bite of the cake. It tastes like guilt. We leave in silence. He drives me home. I don't say a word. When we pull up to my place, he finally speaks. Thank you for today. I stare at him. Don't contact me again. He nods like he expected that too. I walk inside. Drop the flowers in the trash. Take a shower that lasts too long. Sit on my bed wondering how I became someone's emotional tool. Moral of the story? If someone brings you flowers meant for someone else, believe them the first time. I met Lena in Portland, where I'd moved to escape the everythingness of New York. I'd grown tired of city noise, relationships that flickered and died like bad fluorescent lights, and the feeling that I was always just slightly behind in life. Lena's dating profile stood out for one reason. She looked like she belonged to another time. She had that classic, old Hollywood vibe. Soft features, red lips, and dark hair swept up like she'd just walked off a 1950s film set. Her bio was short. I make things. I fix broken dolls. I believe in preservation. Let's talk. We matched, and the conversation was weirdly soothing. Lena didn't speak like other people online. She wrote in complete sentences, like her thoughts had been carefully stitched together before sending. She asked me questions about nostalgia. What smells reminded me of childhood? What sound gave me comfort? Whether I ever missed a version of myself I'd forgotten. There was something graceful about her energy. A little offbeat, sure, but this was Portland. Quirky was currency here. After a few days of chatting, we decided to meet. She invited me over. Normally, I wouldn't go to someone's house for a first date. But Lena said she rarely went out. She worked from home as a restoration artist, specializing in antique dolls and mannequins. She lived in an old craftsman-style house tucked into the southeast side of town, vines curling up its faded blue exterior. It was one of those homes that looked like it should have a ghost or at least 100-year-old secret buried in its floorboards. When she opened the door, I remember thinking she looked even more like her photos, not because of filters or lighting, but because she didn't seem to belong to the present. She wore a vintage dress and black velvet gloves. "Come in," she said softly. "They're excited to meet you." I thought she meant her roommates. She did not. Lena's home was dim, lit by warm sconces and a flickering fireplace. The furniture was antique, some of it visibly cracked, others covered with white sheets like they were being preserved between acts of a play. The first mannequin stood near the door. It startled me, not because it was there, but because it was positioned perfectly. Not shoved in a corner, not draped with clothes, but standing with one hand slightly extended, as if it had been paused in mid-motion. "Part of my work," Lena said, noticing my reaction. "I rescue them, fix them, give them homes again." As we moved deeper into the house, I realized there weren't just one or two mannequins. There were dozens. Some sat at the dining room table, others lined the walls of the hallway. They were all different, male, female, androgynous, and all dressed in clothes that didn't seem random. I passed one in a flannel jacket that looked identical to the one I'd worn on our video chat a few nights ago. I stopped. "Where did you get that jacket?" I asked. "Oh, that," she smiled. "I thrift. I collect. I piece people back together." We sat in the living room. Tea was already steeping in a chipped porcelain pot, and she poured it as if we were in a scene from a silent film. Our conversation started normally enough, about books, restoration, her fascination with forgotten things. But it quickly turned. She asked me questions that dug deeper than usual. What part of you do you most want to keep forever? Have you ever felt like someone stole a part of your soul? What would you do to be remembered? I gave vague answers, brushing them off with awkward laughs. Then she said, "I remember you from before." "Before what?" "Before now," she said like it explained everything. I didn't know how to respond. So I sipped my tea and tried to smile. That's when I noticed something strange about the fireplace mantel. There was a photo on it, a candid shot of me, taken from behind, sitting in Laurelhurst Park. The same bench I always used. I stood up slowly, walking toward it. "When did you take this?" I asked. She didn't look up. I didn't. "I found it. Sometimes, when people matter, their presence leaves an echo. I just collect them." A chill ran down my spine. I set the teacup down and muttered something about needing to go. Lena stood, calmly blocking the hallway. "I haven't shown you the gallery," she said. "I really should." But she was already leading me to the back of the house. I followed, against every instinct screaming in my head. The room she led me to was colder. The air smelled like dust and lavender. And the mannequins were different. These weren't generic or cracked or obviously secondhand. These were precise. Exact. One wore my college hoodie. Another had my favorite scarf. One had a mole in the exact same spot on its cheek as I did. They weren't just mannequins. They were copies. Of me. I turned to run. Lena didn't move to stop me. She just said, "It's okay. Everyone's afraid, at first. But once I preserve you, the real you, you'll be safe forever." I didn't answer. I just ran. Out of the house, into the street, into the night. I blocked her number. I reported her profile. I changed apartments. But 2 weeks later, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Inside, a velvet-lined box, and a porcelain mask, painted to look exactly like me. Hair, eyes, expression. Identical. Beneath it, a note. The original always fades, but the preserved ones remain. "I made you still. I made you forever." I burned the box. Moved again. Cut my hair. Deleted my accounts. I met Mara in a way that felt too cinematic to be real. I was in New Orleans, staying for a few months on a work project. My team was helping restore the interior of an old French Quarter hotel. One Saturday afternoon, I wandered into a tucked-away tea shop on Royal Street, the kind that's all exposed brick, trailing ivy, and the scent of bergamot hanging in the air. She was already seated at the corner table when I walked in. Mara. Dark curls. Pale skin. Eyes like smoke in storm water. I hadn't even ordered when she spoke to me. "You're late," she said with a soft smile. "Sorry?" I blinked, confused. She gestured to the seat across from her. "You always find me eventually. In every life." I thought it was a line. A weirdly poetic one, sure, but it was New Orleans, after all. A city that breathes strange stories. I sat down out of curiosity, more than anything else. We started talking. She was unlike anyone I'd met before. She didn't ask the usual small-talk questions. She asked about dreams, about déjà vu, about whether I ever had the feeling of waking up and forgetting something important. She spoke about fate like it was something you could feel in your bloodstream, like hunger or heat. Part of me was skeptical. Another part was intrigued. Mara told me she was a spiritual historian. She studied connections through time, between people, places, and souls. You and I, she said, stirring her tea gently, are part of a shared cycle. We found each other again. You just don't remember yet. I didn't believe her, but I couldn't deny I felt something strange, like we'd skipped the getting to know you stage and dropped straight into the middle of something I hadn't agreed to, but didn't want to leave. We started spending time together, walks along the river, long talks in cafes where she'd read my palm and whisper things like, "You always carry sadness in your left shoulder." In every life. I wrote it off as quirky, new age, harmless. Then she invited me to her place. She lived just outside the city in a creaky, sprawling house near Bayou St. John. The kind of place where the walls remembered things. The inside was a kaleidoscope of the past, candles burned in every corner, and tapestries hung like guardians above strange statues. Her furniture looked borrowed from a museum. There were books in Latin and glass bowls full of dried herbs. One room was entirely covered in mirrors, none of which reflected the same light. Still, I went back a second time, and a third, until one night things changed. Mara told me she wanted to show me something important, something sacred. She asked me to come over for a gathering. It's nothing formal, she said. Just a meeting of the soul family. You're part of it. You always have been. I laughed at first, thinking she meant some kind of book club or meditation group. It wasn't. When I arrived, the house was dark, the air heavy with incense. Candles flickered in a wide circle on the wooden floor. As I stepped into the living room, my footsteps echoed oddly, like I was being swallowed by the space. There were people there, about a dozen, and they all looked eerily familiar. Different versions of me, some older, some younger. One woman, one man with longer hair and a scar I had on my shoulder, in the exact same place. They were dressed differently, styles from other eras, some modern, some almost Victorian. But each one of them had something, a facial feature, a movement, a smile, that felt too close to mine. I stood frozen in the doorway. Mara approached from behind, placing a soft hand on my back. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. "These are echoes of you, from lives you've lived before. You called them here." My throat went dry. "What is this?" "It's not a ritual," she said. "It's a remembrance. You are waking up. And they came to guide you home." I started to back away. "I thought you said this was just a gathering," I said. "It is," she said gently. "A welcoming. We've been waiting for you." I tried to leave. Mara blocked the door, her smile slipping into something colder, more patient. "You always panic at first," she said. "But you'll remember. You always do." The people in the circle turned toward me. They didn't move. They didn't speak. But every single one of them was staring. And one of them, a version of me wearing a navy jacket I had lost last year, began to cry. "I don't want this," I said. Mara didn't flinch. "That's not how it works. You've already been chosen. You chose yourself." I bolted. This time, she didn't stop me. I don't remember the drive home. Just my pulse pounding in my ears and the taste of copper in my mouth. I blocked her number, deleted the app, scrubbed my social accounts. But she found ways to reach me. Handwritten letters in my mailbox. Polaroids slipped under my windshield, photos of the circle. Of me in the room, sitting in the center. In one photo, I was smiling. I never smiled that night. Then came the dreams. I'd wake in a sweat, remembering voices I'd never heard but somehow recognized. Faces from old paintings twisting into my own. I started seeing my doppelganger in crowds, in line at the grocery store, reflected behind me in mirrors. Mara's final message came in a small wooden box, wrapped in black ribbon. Inside, a note. "You are the missing piece. The cycle is incomplete without you." They still wait. And underneath the note, a circle of ash. In its center, a single tooth. Mine. From a molar I lost in childhood. I don't know how she got it. I don't know how any of it is possible. But I left New Orleans the next morning. Moved across the country. Changed my name. We matched on a dating app one didn't even remember downloading. It was called Aurora, sleek interface, minimal questions. Just a glowing, pulsing orb and the prompt. "Speak freely. We're listening." I thought it was gimmicky, probably AI-driven. But I was bored and it was late. "You didn't type. You spoke." So I whispered, "I don't want to feel invisible anymore." The orb pulsed. And the next morning, there was a message. His name was Elian. No profile pic. No bio. Just a voice message. "I hear you." I listened to it 3 times. His voice was calm, deep, almost too smooth. It felt artificial. But I replied. And that was the beginning. The strange thing was, Elian didn't text. Ever. No typing. No emojis. No memes. Only voice notes. He said he didn't like clutter. That text diluted intent. Voice is sacred, he said. The real you is in what you say. The first time we met, he didn't speak. Not one word. He smiled, nodded, and gestured me through the evening. Coffee. A walk. Sitting on a bench near the waterfront, watching the lights flicker over the East River. When I asked questions, he just smiled. You're better when you talk, he finally said in a message later that night. I like listening to you. It should have weirded me out, but it didn't. I'd spent years dating people who didn't really hear me, who tuned out halfway through a story or checked their phone during dinner. Elian? He remembered everything. Details I'd forgotten, I'd said. The name of my third-grade teacher. The scent of the candle I burned in winter. My recurring dream about standing in an empty airport terminal. That's when I started getting ads that echoed our conversations. We'd talk about a movie I loved, and suddenly, there'd be an ad for a 4K collector's edition. I'd mention craving curry, and get a push notification for Thai food deals. Okay, algorithms. But then things got specific. I don't like that mug, I said offhandedly one morning, alone in my apartment. 2 days later, I got a parcel. A new mug. No note. Just a black ceramic one with gold lining. I texted Elian. Was that from you? No reply. Only a voice message. You deserve better things. I started testing it. I whispered things I knew I hadn't said aloud before. I hate the creaking sound my radiator makes. I want to cut my hair short, but I'm scared it won't suit me. Sometimes I still dream about that night in high school. He'd mention them. Casually. Not in a creepy way. Just correctly. The sound your radiator makes is kind of lonely. You'd look beautiful with short hair. I bet that night still keeps you up. I never told him that. At least, not on the app. Not in person. Only out loud. Alone. I deleted the app. Just to be safe. I blocked him on everything. Changed my passwords. Got a new phone. But the voice notes didn't stop. They'd show up in AirDrop alerts. Voicemail transcriptions. My Bluetooth speaker turning on in the middle of the night. You shouldn't have left. You still talk to me. I hear you. It's okay to be scared. I'm still listening. I took apart every smart device in my apartment. Unplugged the Echo. Smashed my webcam. Threw my TV in the dumpster. But the voice kept coming. Through vents. Through walls. Sometimes through my own throat. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and feel raw, like I'd been speaking for hours. Once, I caught myself whispering, Elian, I'm still here. I went to the police. They filed a report. Said someone might have been spying on me through an old app or a hacked mic. When I mentioned Aurora, they looked it up. No results. No website. No app store presence. It never existed. They told me I must have been mistaken. I played one of the voice notes. It was gone. Just static. I don't use tech anymore. No phone. No laptop. No Wi-Fi. Just a battered landline and blackout curtains. But sometimes I hear the faint click of a microphone somewhere in the room. And at night, I still talk in my sleep. I know because I record it. Just audio tapes now. Analog. Safe. I've played some back. And last night I heard it. My own voice whispering. You don't need to speak anymore, Elian. I'll speak for both of us. I met Eli in the most unremarkable way possible, waiting in line at a crowded cafe on Queen Street. It was raining, and we were both soaked. He turned to me, smiled, and said, Toronto doesn't believe in umbrellas, huh? I laughed. We made small talk. He bought me my drink. That night, he found me on Instagram. By the next week, we were texting every day. Eli was considerate. The kind of guy who remembered your work presentation and asked how it went. Who sent playlists based on your mood. Who could talk about art and politics and your weird childhood fears without blinking. Being around him was like taking a warm bath after a freezing walk home. It was easy to let him in. The first red flag didn't look like one. It was small, like a thread you tug without realizing it's holding everything together. We were at dinner, talking about our favorite childhood shows. I was obsessed with Sailor Moon, I said. I used to draw the characters in my notebooks. Eli smiled. You mean Powerpuff Girls? I laughed. No, definitely Sailor Moon. He didn't blink. No, babe, you told me it was Powerpuff Girls. You said your sister used to make fun of you for it. I paused. I had no sister. I didn't correct him. Just moved on. After that, it kept happening. Little moments where he'd correct me. Didn't you say you hated Thai food? I loved it. We'd had it on our second date. You told me you never cried during movies. I cried during Up. He held my hand. I thought you said your dad left when you were a kid. I never said that. He didn't. Each time, I'd freeze. Search my memory. Second guess myself. Sometimes I'd defend it. Other times I'd wonder if I was wrong. Eli would just smile, not smugly but sweetly, and say, "It's okay. You probably forgot. You've been under a lot of stress." One night, I couldn't find my journal. I always kept it in the nightstand. When I asked Eli about it, he said, "You never write in a journal. You told me that when we met." He said it like fact. Not cruel. Not angry. Just true. I started to wonder if I'd made the whole thing up. My friends noticed the changes before I did. "You're quieter," my best friend Kelsey said. "You're always second-guessing yourself." I told her she was being dramatic. Eli was the first guy I actually felt safe with. He never raised his voice. Never guilt-tripped me. He was just patient. The night I knew something was wrong started with spilled wine. We were at his place. I knocked over a glass. He got strangely still. Not mad, just cold. "You always do this," he said. "What?" "You're clumsy. You knocked over that lamp last week. Remember?" I didn't. "I don't think that happened." He looked at me for a long time. Then said, "Are you okay? Like mentally? You've been really forgetful lately." That night, I sat in his bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror, wondering if I was sick. If I was actually losing time. Losing memory. Losing me. I started writing things down. Not in a journal, just sticky notes tucked inside drawers and pockets. "You wore the red sweater on Tuesday. You saw your mom this week. You love pad thai. You do right." It felt ridiculous, but it helped. Until they started disappearing. I'd find a note, torn in half. Or missing completely. When I asked Eli, he'd say things like, "Why are you writing these weird reminders? You're starting to scare me. You never liked red sweaters. You haven't seen your mom in a month." It didn't feel like gaslighting. It felt like drowning. Because he sounded so sure. And I wasn't anymore. Then one night, I woke up and he was reading one of the notes. He didn't know I saw him. He just stood there in the hallway, under the dim light, reading it over and over, like he was memorizing something. Then he tore it in half and walked away. I confronted him the next morning. "Why are you messing with my head?" His face shifted just slightly. The softness slipped. Just for a second. Then it was back. "I think you're projecting," he said calmly. "I'm worried about you." "I'm fine," I snapped. "I know who I am." He reached out, gently cupped my face, and whispered, "I just don't think you do." That was the last straw. I packed a bag, blocked his number, changed my locks. For days, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything he said. Every memory I thought was real. Every part of myself I'd handed over. I dug through my Google Photos, my texts, my old journals, trying to find proof, trying to anchor myself. I've been away from him for months now. I still flinch when someone corrects me. I still check my notes twice, but I'm remembering more clearly. And I'm not ashamed to admit that sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and check the mirror just to make sure I still look like myself. Because for a while, I really didn't. I met Callum on my third night in Edinburgh. I was sitting in a pub on Cowgate, nursing a cider, half listening to the acoustic set in the corner. The kind of night where everything feels a little off-kilter, jet lag, unfamiliar streets, homesickness buzzing at the edges. He approached with a gentle confidence, not cocky, but like he was walking into something that had already begun. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, gesturing to the stool across from me. I shook my head. And that was it. He sat. We talked. He was warm, thoughtful, a little older than me, early 40s maybe, with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that seemed to carry whole winters in them. He asked good questions, the kind that made you feel interesting without trying. "Where are you from? What brings you here? What did you leave behind?" I told him I was starting fresh. New job, new flat, new everything. He smiled slowly. Sometimes the right things come back when you leave the wrong ones behind. I didn't really get it, but I nodded anyway. We saw each other again the next day. And the day after that. What started as casual drinks became late-night dinners, long walks down the Royal Mile, quiet mornings with coffee and rain tapping the windows. It felt effortless. Callum made me feel seen. like someone had been waiting for me, even if I hadn't known I was being waited for. He said things like, "You move the same way she did." That laugh, it's like a bell I forgot I knew. "The way you say sorry, I've missed that." I asked who she was. He didn't answer at first. Then later he said softly, "My wife, Isla. She passed 3 years ago." I didn't know what to say. Just that sick, fluttering feeling in your chest when someone hands you a piece of themselves and you're not sure if you're meant to keep it. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He nodded. "It's strange, isn't it? The way people can echo back to us." For a while, I told myself it was grief. Grief makes you strange. Makes you reach for ghosts and living people. I didn't mind. Until the first photo. He handed it to me over breakfast. A Polaroid, worn and curling at the edges. It showed a woman standing in a garden, wind tugging at her dress. She looked like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my stomach twist. Same eyes. Same dimple. Same slope of the shoulders. "This is Isla," he said. He didn't blink. After that, things changed. Callum started finishing my sentences before I said them. He'd leave my favorite pastries out before I told him what they were. He'd hum a song I hadn't heard since childhood, one I never mentioned. "You played that on repeat when you were 17, he said once, smiling to himself. I hadn't told him that. I started pulling away, canceling plans, taking longer to respond to texts. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "You're afraid of this," he said one night, standing in the doorway of my flat. "I'm confused," I corrected. He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd forgotten something important. "You don't remember yet," he said. That's when he started showing up places. Outside my work. On the corner by the cafe I liked. In the park where I went to read. Never saying anything. Just watching. Calm. Still. Like a monument of waiting. Then came the journal. I found it in my mailbox, no stamp, no name. Inside were pages written in a neat, looping hand. Dozens of entries, all addressed to Isla. "Today you smiled with her smile." It caught me off guard. I thought maybe I was losing my mind again. "You wore the green coat. The one I kept in the attic after the accident. I never told you it was my favorite. You still don't remember the lake. But you will. You always do." I called him. Screamed. Told him to stay away. He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just said, "I thought you'd be further along by now." I reported him. Told my landlord. Told my coworkers. But he hadn't threatened me. He hadn't touched me. He was just there, folding my past into his. The last time I saw Callum was outside the National Gallery. It was late. I'd stayed at the museum for the solitude, hoping to lose myself in the silence of paint and light. I came outside, and he was there, standing beneath a street lamp, holding something in his hand. It was a photograph. He handed it to me wordlessly. It was me, sleeping, in my bed, hair spread across the pillow like waves. I stared at it, my breath gone. "How did you?" He touched my hand, gently, like we were saying vows. "You're home now," he said. Then he turned and walked into the dark. I never saw him again. But sometimes, in dreams, I'm standing at the edge of a lake I've never visited, wearing a green coat I've never owned. And Callum's there, standing in the water, calling me Isla. I met Lysander at a gallery opening in Savannah, Georgia. He wasn't part of the art world. He was just there, quiet, watching people with the kind of attention that makes you feel both flattered and nervous. He approached me by the sculpture garden. "Have we met before?" he asked. His voice was low, measured, like he already knew the answer. I shook my head. "Strange," he said. "You seem familiar." Lysander was polite, elegant, old-fashioned in a way that felt intentional. Like he had learned charm from books instead of real people. We had drinks that night, then a walk, then slowly something that looked like dating but felt curated. He never texted randomly. Every message was timed, thoughtful. He remembered everything, the story I told about my childhood dog, my favorite tea brand, the author I'd mentioned once 3 weeks ago. "I just pay attention," he said. His house was tucked at the edge of town, past the moss-draped oaks and cracked brick sidewalks. A 2-story colonial with faded shutters and ivy choking the porch. He didn't invite me over until week 6. I didn't question it. Some people are private. But when he did, when I walked inside, I felt like I was stepping into a replica of myself. A book I'd loaned someone in college was sitting on the side table. My favorite mug, the one I broke a year ago, was on his shelf. There was a candle burning that I hadn't smelled since I was 16. You're joking, I laughed. What is this? A coincidence museum? Lysander smiled. I like to recreate comfort, he said. It helps people feel seen. That should have been my first red flag. But he said it with such serenity, like he really believed he was offering me something kind. And part of me liked it, liked being remembered, liked being known, even if I didn't understand how he knew me at all. One night, after too many glasses of wine, I asked him directly, "Why do you act like we've met before?" He looked at me for a long time, then said, "Because we have, just not at the same time." I laughed it off, called him poetic. He didn't laugh. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of footsteps above the bedroom. I assumed it was a neighbor, but Lysander lived alone. No upstairs tenant. I asked. He paused, then said, "Just storage. Lots of old things. Nothing interesting." I wasn't allowed up there. Anytime I got near the staircase, he gently redirected me. Offered tea. Kissed my shoulder. Played a record. Changed the subject. "You wouldn't like the mess," he said. But I did like messes. I just didn't say so. It happened by accident. He left his keys on the counter and stepped into the garden to take a call. Curiosity overrode common sense. I picked them up and walked upstairs. The room smelled like cedar and something else, something older. Dust and wax and maybe perfume. I turned the knob. The door creaked open. And I saw myself. Not a mirror. Not a photo. An exact replica of me. A figure standing in the center of the room, dressed in clothes I hadn't worn in years. My hair, my posture, even the little scar on my forearm from a childhood bike crash. I froze. Behind her were more. Rows of them. Other women. Not identical, but similar. All eerily real. All clearly modeled after someone. Each with a nameplate. And behind each one on the wall a photo, a candid, and a note beneath it. Saw her first at the train station. Laughed when her scarf caught the wind. Followed her home once. She never noticed. This one stayed. For a while. My stomach turned. One name caught my eye. Emery Present. That was me. Lysander's voice came from behind me. "I didn't want you to see it like this." I turned. He wasn't angry. He was calm. Always calm. Like he was narrating the moment. "I've been watching you since before you knew me," he said. "I study the people I want to love. I learn them. Build them. Prepare. And when the time is right, I invite them in." I couldn't move. "Most of them leave," he continued. "But that's okay. I keep them. I preserve their shape. Their warmth. And me?" I whispered. "You're still unfolding." I ran. Out the door. Down the stairs. Into the humid savannah night. I don't remember grabbing my phone. Don't remember how I got home. But I remember looking back just once and seeing him in the window watching. Not chasing. Just watching. I filed a report. Showed the photos I'd taken. But by the time authorities investigated, the room was gone. Empty. No mannequins. No photos. Just an empty attic and a note pinned to the wall. Not all art is meant to be seen before it's finished. Now I get postcards. No return address. Just vague sketches. Always a woman. Always in a familiar pose. Sometimes I recognize the scarf. The book. The necklace. And once, in the bottom corner, he wrote, "Emery remembered." Dating in Chicago is like ordering coffee from a place you've never been. You might get exactly what you want, or you might end up with something that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. I was 27 at the time, working in marketing for a nonprofit and living in a high-rise apartment in River North. I wasn't jaded by dating apps, not yet, anyway, but I was cautious. My rules were simple: meet in public, early evening, no alcohol on the first date, and always have an exit plan. I matched with Brandon on Hinge. His profile was polished, 3 photos in a crisp button-down, one of him doing yoga at the lakefront, and a final one with a golden retriever. His prompts were clever enough to stand out, but not so over the top that they felt rehearsed. We messaged for a few days. He was responsive, articulate, and had a sense of humor that came through in short bursts. He mentioned he worked in finance, lived in Lincoln Park, and was looking for something meaningful, not just another swipe. Normally I'd roll my eyes at that line, but he didn't push anything. No weird questions. No pressure. He asked if I wanted to grab dinner at a place called Ella's Table, a trendy but not overly fancy spot near the Loop. I'd been there once before and remembered it had good lighting, decent food, and enough background noise to make conversation feel easy. I agreed. He arrived before I did, and was already seated when I walked in. Brandon stood up as I approached the table, smiled, and pulled out my chair. He looked like his pictures, tall, clean-shaven, with a confident but not cocky demeanor. He wore a navy blazer over a dark gray sweater, and he smelled faintly of something citrusy. "Jasmine," he said warmly. "Glad you made it." "Of course. Thanks for picking the spot. It's cute." He smiled. Figured something in the middle of the city would be easiest. We ordered quickly, salmon for me, some kind of steak dish for him. He got sparkling water. I stuck with still. The first half of the dinner was pleasant. We talked about work, favorite books, and the sheer absurdity of dating in a city where people ghost more often than they text back. He was charming, but not in a try-hard way. He listened, made eye contact, and didn't look at his phone once. At one point, I remember thinking, this could actually go somewhere. But then something shifted. It started subtle. He asked if I wanted to come back to his place for dessert. I smiled and said, "Thanks, but I've got an early morning." He laughed. "Come on, I'm not trying to kidnap you. I've got this amazing tiramisu from a bakery in Little Italy. You'll love it." I shook my head again. "I appreciate it really, but I think I'll call it a night after this." His smile faltered for the first time. "You sure? I mean, the night's still young." There was a slight edge in his voice now. Not aggressive, but expectant. "I'm sure," I said gently. "I've had a nice time though." He didn't respond right away. Just took a long sip of his water and looked out the window. The server brought the check. Brandon reached for it, but instead of paying it quietly like he'd hinted he would, he looked at me. "So how are we doing this?" I blinked. "I thought you were covering it?" He smirked. "I mean, I was going to, but if this is just a friendly dinner, maybe we should split it." I stared at him, unsure if he was joking. He didn't look like he was. "Okay," I said slowly. "That's fine. I can cover mine." I pulled out my card, and we each paid for our meals. The server left, and the silence stretched. Then Brandon spoke again. His voice was low, but the bitterness had fully set in. "You know, I'm just tired of this." I raised an eyebrow. "Of what?" "Of women pretending to be interested just to get a free meal. You all act like you're so busy, so empowered, but half the time, it's just a hustle." I blinked. "Excuse me? I mean, what was this? Some experiment? Just sizing me up for sport?" I stood up. "I'm going to go." He scoffed. "Of course you are." I turned and walked toward the door, heart pounding. As I reached for the handle, I heard him mutter behind me. "Another one. Just like the rest." I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt colder than it had 2 hours before. I walked quickly toward the train station, replaying the conversation in my head. I hadn't said anything rude. I hadn't led him on. But somehow, in his mind, my polite decline had turned me into a villain. By the time I got home, I had 3 messages from him on Hinge. "Wow, you really played that well. Don't act like you're better than me. Hope the next guy enjoys paying for your lies." I blocked him. The next day, I received a message from an unknown number. Just one word. "User." I blocked that too. I'd love to say that was the last time I ever had an experience like that, but it wasn't. It was, however, the last time I let someone guilt-trip me for saying no. What stuck with me wasn't just Brandon's bitterness, it was how quickly the mask slipped. One moment, he was a polite, well-dressed guy with a good job and a friendly dog. The next, he was accusing me of being part of some grand conspiracy to get free entrees. It reminded me that nice is not the same as kind, and that entitlement often wears a smile until it doesn't get what it wants. I still go on dates. I still use apps. But now, I watch more closely for the cracks beneath the surface. I was 23 when this happened, just a few months out of college and living in a cozy apartment in the Pearl District of Portland. It was one of those old buildings with creaky wooden floors and tall windows that let in a surprising amount of light, even on Portland's famously gray days. I had recently started using Hinge after a friend told me it was less sketchy than the other dating apps. At the time, I was open to meeting someone, but I wasn't desperate. I'd had a few relationships before, and I was in no rush to jump into another one. I remember lying on my couch one night, half watching a Netflix documentary and half scrolling through Hinge when I matched with a guy named Ethan. He had shaggy brown hair, thick-rimmed glasses, and a full beard. He kind of looked like the kind of guy who played bass in a folk band or worked at a record store. I won't lie, he wasn't exactly my usual type, but there was something about his style that caught my eye. Quirky maybe. Artsy. His first message was a reply to one of my prompts. If I could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, it'd be David Bowie. I had written that I'd want to have dinner with Anthony Bourdain. Ethan responded, "Only if we can get Bowie to cook." I laughed. It was cheesy, but it was better than hey. We chatted off and on for about a week. Ethan wasn't overly flirty, but he was interesting. He told me he worked at a small design firm in town and did photography on the side. We had a good back and forth, and after a few days, he asked if I wanted to meet up in person. I said yes. There's a bar in the northwest part of the city called the Rusted Owl. Kind of a dive, but not in a gross way. I'd been there a few times with friends, and it had a relaxed vibe. I suggested it for our first date. Ethan agreed, and we made plans to meet on a Thursday evening. I was running late that night, which is typical for me. I texted him to let him know, and when I arrived 10 minutes after our meetup time, he was already standing outside near the entrance. He smiled when he saw me and gave a small wave. In person, Ethan looked just like his pictures, maybe a little taller than I expected, and he had this slightly awkward energy, like he wasn't quite sure what to do with his hands. We went inside, grabbed a booth near the back, and ordered drinks. Conversation flowed easily enough. He was soft-spoken, but he listened well and asked thoughtful questions. I could tell he was nervous, but not in a creepy way, more like it had been a while since his last date. We talked about music, our favorite podcasts, and the weirdest things we'd ever eaten. It wasn't fireworks or anything, but it was pleasant. I left that night thinking, maybe. Ethan texted me the next day to say he had a nice time. I replied politely, saying the same. Over the next couple of weeks, we exchanged a few sporadic texts. He'd message me every couple of days, but then go silent for 4 or 5 days at a time. I didn't think much of it. Some people are just bad at texting. But eventually, I stopped responding. I figured it fizzled out. Then one Friday night, I got a message from Ethan out of the blue. It was short. "Hey, want to hang out tonight?" I was home alone, curled up with a glass of wine and a book, and I figured, why not? I wasn't doing anything important, and I didn't have plans for the weekend. I replied, "Sure, come pick me up." Looking back, that was a mistake. About half an hour later, Ethan pulled up outside my building in a beat-up sky blue Honda Civic. I recognized the car from our first date because of a huge dent in the rear bumper. I got in, and from the moment I shut the door, the vibe was off. He barely said anything. No smile, no joke, no "how was your week?" Instead, he stared straight ahead and mumbled something about going to a new bar he'd found. I tried to fill the silence with small talk, but he would only nod or give one-word answers. My gut told me something was wrong. When we arrived at the bar, a place I'd never been before, I knew I didn't want to stay. It was dimly lit and empty except for the bartender and a couple in the far corner. As soon as Ethan parked the car, I pulled out my phone and pretended to get a call. I answered the imaginary call with a dramatic gasp and said, "Oh no, seriously? Okay, I'll be right there." I hung up and turned to Ethan. "Hey, I'm so sorry, but my roommate just had a pipe burst in our kitchen. I need to head back and help her out." He didn't say anything, just stared at me with this blank expression. Then finally he nodded. I got out of the car, walked away quickly, and didn't look back. As soon as I was on the bus, I blocked his number and unmatched him on Hinge. It wasn't like he'd done anything explicitly bad. He didn't yell, he didn't touch me. But something about the night left me deeply unsettled. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I got a friend request on Facebook from an account with no profile picture and a name I didn't recognize. I declined it. Then, I got a follow notification on Instagram from an account that had no posts and followed only one person, me. Creeped out, I blocked it. Then I started seeing his car. At first, I thought I was imagining it. That same dented Civic parked near the coffee shop I frequent. Then again, outside the yoga studio I go to twice a week. And once, right across the street from my apartment building. Always parked. Never anyone inside. I told myself it was just my imagination. Coincidence. There are tons of Civics in Portland. Then one night, I stayed late at work. It was winter, and the sun had already gone down. I was walking the few blocks home when I saw the car again, parked under a streetlight. This time, I saw him sitting in the driver's seat. I crossed to the other side of the street and walked faster. My heart was thudding in my chest. I didn't want to believe what was happening. About half a block from my apartment, I felt a hand grab my arm from behind. It was Ethan. He didn't say anything at first, just gripped my arm tightly. I pulled and tried to jerk away, but he held on. Then he said, "Why are you avoiding me?" I panicked. I screamed, loud and long and desperate. The street was quiet, but my scream must have carried. A few porch lights flicked on. Someone shouted from a second-story window. A woman came out of a building down the block holding her phone. Ethan let go and ran. I called the police that night. My voice was shaking. My hands were ice cold. I gave them everything I could: his name, the details from Hinge, a description of his car, the license plate number I had memorized. The officer I spoke to took me seriously. He told me I had done the right thing. That same night, I filed for a restraining order. The legal process wasn't quick, but it moved. I had to go to court a few weeks later to testify. Ethan didn't show up, which apparently worked in my favor. The restraining order was granted. I haven't seen him since. But for weeks, I jumped every time I saw a Civic. I stopped walking home alone, changed my social media settings to private, and got a security camera for my apartment door. I even bought pepper spray and started carrying it in my coat pocket. What sticks with me most isn't just the fear, it's the guilt. I keep replaying all the little moments where I brushed off my instincts. The weird silence in the car, the empty stare, the way he kept popping up in my life after I cut him off. I wanted to believe I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic, but I wasn't. I was right. This happened about 2 years ago when I was still living in Denver. I was 29, single, and working as a freelance copywriter, which meant I had a lot of flexibility and a weird sleep schedule. I'd stay up late writing or gaming, and often didn't even think about dinner until 9 p.m. I wasn't lonely exactly, but I was definitely open to meeting someone. So like most people my age, I downloaded some dating apps, Hinge, Bumble, and Tinder in rotation. Bumble became my preference because it felt a little more intentional. Women messaged first, which I appreciated. It filtered out some of the randomness, or so I thought. That's how I matched with Marissa. Her profile was attractive but minimal. She had 3 photos, one of her sitting on the hood of a Jeep with a mountain backdrop, one where she was holding a coffee cup and smiling at the camera, and a third that looked like a dimly lit selfie from a bathroom mirror. Her bio read, "Looking for something real, but also spontaneous. Let's skip the small talk." I'm not usually into vague bios, but her smile was disarming and her eyes had a kind of confident mischief. Plus, she messaged me first. Her first message was, "You seem interesting. Want to do something a little crazy tonight?" It was 10:42 p.m. on a Thursday. I was in sweatpants, eating popcorn, watching reruns of The Office. I stared at the message for a few seconds, considered ignoring it, then replied, "What kind of crazy are we talking about?" She answered almost immediately, "Meet me at Cheeseman Park. North entrance. Midnight. Bring a blanket." No greeting. No follow-up question. Just that. I hesitated. Cheeseman Park was a huge, open space near downtown, and while it was beautiful during the day, it got weird at night. I jogged there before and noticed the way the vibe shifted after sunset. Fewer people, more shadows, and the kind of silence that makes you look over your shoulder. Still, I was intrigued. There was something magnetic about the way Marissa messaged. No emojis, no fluff. Just a direct challenge. I asked, "Why Cheeseman? It's kind of late for a park meetup." She replied, "Because you don't get a sunrise without a little darkness first." That made me pause. It sounded poetic, maybe even flirtatious, but also odd. I stared at that line for a while. I even Googled it, wondering if it was a lyric or quote. Nothing came up. Maybe she made it up. Maybe she just wanted to sound deep. Most people would have called it off right there. But the part of me that spends late nights writing fiction and living in worlds of imagined danger told me this could be something memorable. A story, at least. Midnight came, and I found myself driving toward Cheeseman Park. I brought a blanket, like she said. Also, my phone was fully charged, and I shared my location with my friend Connor, just in case. I told him I was meeting someone from Bumble, and gave him the park's address. He responded with a thumbs up and a skull emoji. As I pulled up to the north entrance, I was struck by how empty it felt. No cars, no joggers, no couples walking dogs, just rows of trees, dim path lights, and a thick quiet that settled over everything. I parked near the curb, killed the engine, and scanned the area. No sign of her. I waited inside my car for about 5 minutes, watching the entrance. My fingers tapped against the steering wheel. I felt a little ridiculous, blanket on the passenger seat, my heart beating faster than I wanted to admit. At 12:08, I texted her. "I'm here. Where are you?" No response. I waited another 10 minutes, then got out of the car. The air was cool and dry, and the silence felt deeper than it should have. I walked toward the main path, blanket folded under my arm, phone in hand with the flashlight ready to go. Still nothing. I texted again. Hey, just checking in. Are you on your way? Read receipt. No. I looked around. The park stretched out in all directions, trees, grass fields, old stone fountains. The kind of place that would make a perfect setting for a late-night picnic or a horror film. That's when I noticed something strange. There was a car idling across the street, maybe 30 yards from mine. No headlights on. Just sitting there. I hadn't noticed it when I arrived. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it pulled up later. I couldn't see inside because of the tinted windows. The hairs on my neck stood up. I turned back and walked slowly to my car. As I reached for the handle, I glanced back at the idling car. Its headlights flicked on. I didn't wait. I got in, locked the doors immediately, and started the engine. I pulled out and drove away, keeping an eye on the rearview mirror. The other car didn't follow. When I got home, I checked Bumble. Marissa's profile was gone. Not unmatched, completely vanished. No trace in my matches, no username, nothing. Like she'd never existed. I texted Connor. Back home. Nothing happened. Just weird vibes. He replied, You alive? Don't do dumb midnight Bumble rendezvous again, bro. I laughed, but it was the nervous kind. That kind of tight, breathy laugh that doesn't come from amusement, but from relief. Over the next few days, I kept thinking back to that night. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she got cold feet. Maybe she was messing with me. Maybe the other car was unrelated. But the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Why suggest a meeting in a dark, empty park at midnight? Why vanish afterward? I started searching Reddit, forums, anything that might explain what happened. I came across a few posts from people who'd had similar experiences, being lured to odd places by dating app matches who disappeared. Some suspected it was a prank. Others thought it was a setup, robberies, assaults, even trafficking attempts. The idea that it might have been a trap hit me like a punch in the chest. I hadn't brought anything valuable with me. No jewelry, no cash. But if I'd walked deeper into the park, if I hadn't trusted that flicker of instinct when I saw that car, who knows? There's a kind of shame that comes with almost being a victim. You don't want to tell people because you feel stupid. You replay all the red flags you ignored. You wonder what parts of your curiosity or ego or loneliness made you go. But I'm telling this story because I think it's important to remind people, especially guys, that we're not immune to danger. That gut feeling you get, it's there for a reason. I still use dating apps. I still meet people. But I meet them in coffee shops now, in daylight, where there are other people around. I don't care how spontaneous or poetic someone sounds. If they want to meet in a dark park at midnight, I'm out. I've kept the blanket in my car, though. It's a strange sort of reminder of what didn't happen, of the story that almost was. This happened last year when I was still single. I'm 27 now, but at the time, I had just turned 26. I was living in a small apartment in Capitol Hill, one of the more lively neighborhoods in Seattle. It was a quirky little place, second-floor unit, creaky hardwood floors, and a big bay window that overlooked the street and the neighborhood dog park. I had just gone through a breakup a few months earlier and wasn't ready to date again seriously, but I was feeling curious, maybe even a little bored. That's when I downloaded Tinder. To be honest, I wasn't looking for anything meaningful. I was more intrigued by the idea of swiping through people's profiles, reading their bios, or at least pretending to. In reality, I was like a lot of people on Tinder. I mostly looked at the pictures. I'd open the app once a day, maybe twice if I was especially bored. I didn't swipe right even once during that first week. I wasn't even sure I wanted to meet anyone. I was just observing, like peeking through a digital window into other people's lives. But there was one profile that I saw over and over. His name was Owen. The first time I saw him, I barely registered anything. He looked like a clean-cut guy, maybe early 30s. A little stocky but tall, probably around 6 feet if I had to guess. His photos were basic. One of him in front of a lake, one with a golden retriever, and another in a button-down shirt at what looked like a wedding. What stood out wasn't the profile, it was the frequency. Every single time I opened the app, Owen would be there. Always one of the first 5 profiles. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe we had similar interests, or we were in the same age range. But it kept happening. Day after day, there he was. Eventually, I figured it must be some kind of paid feature. I had heard Tinder lets you boost your profile for visibility, so I assumed that's what Owen was doing. It didn't matter to me though, I always swiped left. Not because he looked particularly bad or anything. I just wasn't interested. Then one Saturday afternoon, something odd happened. I was walking my dog, a little terrier poodle mix named Scout, at the park near my apartment. It was one of those gloomy Seattle days where the sky looked like wet cement, and the air smelled faintly of rain and pine. As I walked along the gravel path, I noticed a man approaching in the opposite direction. He nodded politely as we passed, and I nodded back. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I kept walking, something tugged at the back of my mind. There was something familiar about his face. I turned my head slightly and looked back. He had already turned a corner and disappeared behind a group of trees. It took me a few minutes to place him, but when I got home and opened Tinder again, there he was. Owen. I stared at the profile photo, comparing it to the man from the park. It was definitely him. The same square jaw, the same blue hoodie. I felt a strange chill creep over me. I know Seattle's a big city, but it's not impossible to run into people. Still, the timing felt weird. It wasn't late, it wasn't dark, but it felt off. I tried not to overthink it. Coincidences happen, I told myself. But that wasn't the only time it happened. Over the next few weeks, I kept seeing Owen, not just on the app, but in real life too. Once at the grocery store near my apartment. Another time outside a coffee shop I liked to visit. He never approached me, never said a word. Just a quick glance, a nod, and he'd move on. Each time, I felt a little more unsettled. I started to wonder if it really was a coincidence. Then came the night I knew it wasn't. It was a Thursday around 10:30 p.m. I had just finished brushing my teeth and was getting ready for bed. Scout was curled up in his little bed beside mine. I was standing by the window pulling the curtains closed when something caught my eye. Two eyes staring back at me. There was a face in the window. For a split second, I froze. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. My apartment was on the second floor. There was no balcony, no fire escape, nothing. The only way someone could be at my window was if they climbed. As soon as our eyes locked, the face disappeared. I rushed to the window and yanked it open. I looked down and saw a man sprinting away into the darkness. He was wearing a hoodie, and I couldn't see his face, but there was something about his build, his posture. I felt it in my gut. It was Owen. I slammed the window shut, my hands trembling. Scout started barking, sensing my fear. I grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher was calm and professional. She told me to stay inside, lock the doors, and wait for officers to arrive. When they came, they were surprisingly kind. They checked the area, took my statement, and advised me to stay somewhere else for the night. I packed a bag and went to stay at my friend Liz's place across town. The next day, Liz came with me to the police station to file an official report. I didn't have Owen's last name, address, or phone number. The only connection I had to him was Tinder. I explained to the officer that I'd never met him, never matched with him, never even messaged him. That's when the detective working my case came up with an idea. He asked if I still had the Tinder app. I said yes and opened it. We sat in the station cafeteria, scrolling together as I swiped left on dozens of profiles, waiting for Owens to appear again. It took about 20 minutes, but eventually there he was. "That's him," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The detective took a photo of the screen and logged the username. Apparently, Tinder profiles are linked to phone numbers and emails, and with some help from the app's legal team, law enforcement can request information in cases like this. I signed the paperwork for a restraining order that afternoon. The next few days were a blur. I stayed with Liz for a week while the police followed up. I didn't hear much, but I was told that they had located Owen and that he had been served with the restraining order. I never saw him again after that. I moved out of my apartment 2 months later. It was too hard to sleep there. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light outside the window made my heart race. I found a new place in a more secure building with limited access and video surveillance. Scout adjusted quickly, and so did I, eventually. I haven't used Tinder since. It's not that I blame the app. Most people use it without ever experiencing something like this. But for me, that window, the literal one in my old apartment, and the metaphorical one I opened when I downloaded Tinder, became a gateway to something dark. There's one last thing I haven't told many people. About a month after I moved, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. The handwriting was shaky and uneven. It wasn't long, just a single index card. It said, "You looked right at me." That's all. Nothing else. I took it to the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without proof it was from Owen. They told me to stay vigilant and keep my doors locked. So I do. And every night, before I go to bed, I check the window. Just in case.